Welcome to Tech Intersect. I'm your host, Tonya Evans, and my life and work exist at the heart of law, business, and technology. Yeah, I've earned a few fancy titles and degrees over the years, but the bottom line is I'm a writer, speaker, teacher, and lifelong learner, and I'm really excited that you've joined me on this journey. So what is Tech Intersect? Well, it's authentic, empowering conversations with really interesting guests who demystify complex topics to prepare you for the future, because your future is now. And it exists where law, business, and tech intersect. Get ready to listen, learn, and leverage. Let's get started. In this episode of Tech Intersect, I welcome Alex Adelman, co-founder of the Bitcoin rewards company, Lolli. We cover everything from how and why he founded the company to how he found his way to Bitcoin and why he even named the company Lolli in the first place. And it's a really sweet story, no pun intended, and you'll see why I say that in a minute. We also talk about mass adoption, stacking sats, and the future of business in the crypto ecosystem. The list of Lolli partners is really impressive and includes some of the world's top brands like Saks Fifth Avenue, Sam's Club, Marriott, and so many others. So it's time to listen, learn, and leverage. Let's get started. Today, I'm thrilled to speak with co-founder and CEO of Lolli, Alex Adelman. Now, Lolli is not just a rising star, but a trailblazer in the race toward mass adoption of crypto in general, but Bitcoin in particular. I'm really honored to have you on Tech Intersect. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
So let's dive right in and explain to the listeners what Lolli is. And remember, we're going to have people who are deeply entrenched in the space and also people who are listening and cautious and conservative and don't know a thing about the space. So how do you explain it to the masses what Lolli is?
Yeah, so great question. So we are a Bitcoin rewards company. We keep it very simple. Basically, we give people Bitcoin rewards when they shop online. So we have users from all different backgrounds. We have people who have clearly never had Bitcoin before. We have people who are hardcore Bitcoiners and they want more. They want to quote unquote stack sats, and we help them earn more Bitcoin. And then we also have the newcomer that has never had it before that wants to earn without taking on the risk of investing in it. We partner with over 750 merchants all across the US. And when our users shop online, those merchants pay us, and then we pay our users sending Bitcoin to their Lolli wallets.
That's amazing because it really gets to, there's so much even in just what you said that all my synapses are firing as I'm talking to you. But at a high level, the idea that the average person can in fact have access to Bitcoin without going through the traditional process of having a cold store wallet or going to an exchange and trying to understand from a technological perspective how to even do that. So that's why I think that your project, not just project, with your business is a game changer. So I'm really interested in like the origin story of the company, why you created it, who's involved, and even what brought you to crypto in the first place.
Great. Yeah, thank you for asking. We've stumbled upon it about like the team and I, we built a company together starting about 8 years ago. And our whole goal was to democratize commerce. How do we connect the entire world through commerce in a seamless way? I think that even though the internet is inherently global, it's very much disconnected. And it's disconnected by payments. It's disconnected by e-commerce rails in the background of where you can transact. It's extremely frustrating as like a technologist or company builder to be inhibited by borders when you don't think that those borders should exist.
Right.
So we built this company called Cosmic, started about 8 years ago, right after college. And it was an e-commerce gateway, and we would hook into the back ends of top retailers, Fortune 1000 merchants, and we would sell their products in different channels. So the whole idea was like, how do we connect commerce better? How do we give merchants the ability to sell their products anywhere? And so that if you were watching a video, or if you were in a magazine, or if you were in an app, third-party app, you could buy directly there. Now we're seeing that everywhere. You're seeing it at Instagram. You're seeing it in Pinterest, in all these different channels. So it doesn't feel new, but 8 years ago, that clearly did not exist. So
right.
We built something pretty novel. We were the leaders in the space. We, I think, coined the term the buy button and native commerce and all this cool stuff there. And we ultimately got acquired by our biggest customer, which was Pop Sugar at the time, to come in
Mm-hmm.
and power 1.2 billion in retail revenue coming through a lot of these same merchants we're working with today. And then about a year after that, we ended up getting acquired by an even bigger company, which is Rakuten. A lot of people know
Mm,
them as Ebates, which is the biggest cashback company in the US. So we got to learn the cashback model, the rewards model there. About 5 years ago, while we were building Cosmic independently, I remember learning about Bitcoin from a friend at a bar, and everything that he told me about it just resonated with me and everything that I was building with Cosmic. It was this democratization of commerce native to a currency.
right.
It's the only asset that I know of that you can transfer anywhere in the world completely free of any intermediaries getting in the way. And I can send money anywhere in the world without any bank, without any institution. And that to me is unbelievably powerful. I had been, I'd worked with payment companies since I was about 16 or so. And the frustrations that I've had with banks and payments companies and all the intermediaries and all the tax collectors along the way were just very frustrating to me, and just on the building side. And then I know that a lot of those costs are actually passed off to the consumer. And so it's frustrating to me also on the consumer side.
Right.
So I became very interested in Bitcoin through that. And then I introduced it to my team on like Slack and messaging platform. And we all had like a channel that we all kept in touch with it. And then over the years, I think it just got really interesting. And then when we were at Ebates, we actually pitched them the idea as like a new product we wanted to build. They weren't interested at the time, and so we didn't fight it. But after we left Ebates, we started to think about what problem did we want to solve. And I just kept coming back to this idea of Bitcoin and how do we share it with more people? How do we solve the distribution problem, which in my opinion is the biggest problem? I think a lot of people try to solve Bitcoin by building other currencies and other blockchains and all this stuff, but I don't actually think Bitcoin was the issue. I think the distribution was the issue. And so better UI, better experiences had to be built on top of Bitcoin in order for it to be spread to more people and shared with more people. So I was very familiar with e-commerce. We had worked with tons and tons of merchants over the last prior 8 years, and then also I knew the reward space better than I think a lot of people, given my experience at Ebates. And so I got to look at Bitcoin from a very unique angle. And I, got my team back together, and we kept coming back to this idea of Ebates, but for Bitcoin.
Mm,
And how do you do cashback rewards, but instead of cash, doing Bitcoin, or in our case, Sats, as we like to call it.
right.
So, we called up a lot of our old merchants, and were able to land, I think, 500 merchants on board pre-launch. And then my old team was able to build the technology. We were able to partner with all these merchants, and then we launched. And we saw a lot of success in the early days, and we've been successful ever since.
And when did you launch?
We launched about a year and a half ago.
Got it. And that's why I describe you as both rising star and major trailblazer. And there's so many wonderful things. So at Tech Intersect, we are the intersection of law, business, and technology. And you're hitting on all the points, which is really important for listeners, many of whom are entrepreneurs and founders as well, trying to figure out, how do I go from concept to the build to the scaling? And the overnight success usually spends 8 to 10 years doing what they're doing, right? There is no
Yeah,
overnight success when you're
no
truly
overnight success.
successful. And so there are a couple of things I want to highlight and drill down on a bit. One, because one of the questions I was going to ask is what it was like going to some of the world's biggest brands. We have Saks Fifth Avenue and Sam's Club and Marriott and so many other blue chips. And so the question was going to be, how did you forge those relationships? What I heard you say is that relationships existed and that there was a level of trust and belief in your team in order to go ahead and take a chance. Now, that being said, I can imagine it was not easy to take, the traditional legacy system and say, oh, by the way, I'm using crypto, I'm using Bitcoin, come on board, come on in, the water's fine. So talk to us about that process.
Yeah. So, given the audience is, interested in is in entrepreneurship as well as Bitcoin and blockchain, I will share that it's not. It may look like an overnight success, but it came from a lot of hard work. And Cosmic was by no means, we had success in the later days, but
Right.
It was like 4 years of just banging our heads up against a wall. And we saw very little success over those 4 years. And then everybody started talking about buy buttons and native commerce. And we had been building that technology for 4 years. And so it looked like, when we got acquired and we got offers, and it looked like it was like, this company like blew up overnight, but it was a lot of hard work and a lot of cold calling, cold emailing. So a lot of these partners that I'm friends with now, it started a lot of them with cold emails and just cold outreach in reaching out to them and selling our previous company, Cosmic, and selling them the solution where it had an eerily similar pitch. It was, for one, we want to make you money. So that's always what merchants want to hear.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
And with the previous company, I think, we weren't able to prove it in the first couple years, but over the course of six or 7 years of building the company, we were able to prove it, that we were able to increase sales, increase conversions. So a lot of these acquaintances became friends when I was able to make them lots of money. So
you could be my friend anytime. Just let the record reflect, Alex. If you need a new friend, I'm here for you.
I'll make you money. That'll be my calling card. So yes, I came to a lot of these merchants with the last company, was able to make them money and build a strong relationship, and then keep that relationship over the years as we either parted ways or continued to make them money in whatever case it was. And yeah, I think I've always played the long game. I knew with a lot of these merchants, even if they told me no with the last company, it's like, I know at some point I would like to reach back out to Groupon or Harry's or Casper or whoever it was, and maybe they'd like my next company.
Right.
So I don't take no as an offense. I take it as just like, it may be yes later on. And I think that's worked out in our favor with Lolli, because I actually think Lolli has been a way easier sell. There's less of an integration pain point, and they trust us, and we've made a lot of other merchants a lot of money. So they've seen the way that we work.
Right.
Your second question was, what does the actual conversation look like?
Right.
With Lolli, we come in and we say, we have customers that want to shop on your site, and you pay us only when they get paid. So it's performance marketing based. And let's just take Expedia, for example, which we just announced a couple months ago. We go to Expedia and we say, hey, your competitors are on our site. We're sending an absurd amount of money to your competitors, and we can align you with an innovative technology that is Bitcoin. People want Bitcoin. They want to earn Bitcoin in the form of rewards, and they will shop at your site as opposed to your competitors if you join us. So
Right.
If you think about it from Expedia's point of view, that's a pretty easy sell. They get to align themselves with an innovative technology. They get to attract a millennial consumer that wants Bitcoin more than they want cash. And it's a win-win for them. They don't pay us unless they get paid. So everybody wins. And that's how we've been able to attract over 750 top merchants. And we land new merchants just about every week.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of Tech Intersect. Our conversation will continue in a moment, but first, a word on an exciting opportunity.
The Tech Intersect podcast is released to the public every Friday, but as an Advantage Evans member, you'll receive first listen access and live Tech Intersect Connect video chats. Premium members also receive a copy of my ebook, The Gen Xer's Guide to Upskilling in a Web 3.0 World, and unlimited access to the video chat replays and bonus episodes. My Pro members, ready to leverage what they've listened to and learned, receive access to the Upskilling Self-Guided course and VIP group coaching calls. So as you can see, Advantage Evans membership adds substantial value to your podcast experience. And there are 3 ways to take advantage, see what I did right there, of all that the Tech Intersect podcast has to offer. So subscribe now and let's listen, learn, and leverage together.
And now, back to the conversation.
Yeah, it's a really impressive list. And I was writing my lead up and doing my notes before our conversation. And to know that there are not dozens, but hundreds. And by the, this will air in a couple of weeks from when we're having our conversation, that it continues to grow, not just with, and there's nothing wrong with moms and pops or unknown entities, but I think it's really important for mass adoption that the general public see companies that they already have confidence in and that they desire the product or the service. So as you said, not only is it win-win, but the other side of that is you can build it, but if consumers are not participating, then it doesn't serve you well and it won't serve your partners well. So the other side of that is the mass adoption on the consumer side. And I know that that is, among other things, what drew you to build this platform and this service in particular. Talk to us about mass adoption and also define for the listeners what stacking sats means, because that's an important part of what you do as well.
Yeah, so that is our goal. It's mass adoption. It's bring Bitcoin to more people, and I really look at us as part rewards company, part education company. That's why I love and respect what you're doing for Bitcoin education with your podcast, and clearly in teaching as well. And I think it's really important for people to understand not just what Bitcoin is and blockchain and cryptocurrencies are, but also to understand what their current system is. So understanding what money is. And one of my biggest findings from just talking to with people over the years about Bitcoin is people don't have a true understanding of what money is, what it's backed by, or what it's not backed by, and where we derive value from it. And also, what are the underlying systems that are broken with our current financial systems? So I think Bitcoin solves a lot of issues that we have in our global financial systems. And I think it's important for us to teach people about that. And, if we're being honest, price teaches people a lot because it serves as a way to draw attention. I know, I'm getting calls from mainstream media now that Bitcoin's up 15% over the last week. Because they want to know why. And I don't think there's really a true answer why, but I think that it's funny. It's like you can build something and people want to talk about price all day because that's what's exciting. And when we can show that since we launched, it's gone up from $3,600, Bitcoin's gone up from $3,600 to now, I think it was at 82 last I checked. So 8,200. So, it's more than doubled since we launched. So our users that earned with us versus a cashback company have doubled their rewards. And I think that gets people really excited. Then they start to question, why have my rewards doubled? What is this thing that is Bitcoin? And then that's when they start to ask questions about money, and people's natural curiosity comes into play because when I think money makes people very curious. People always want better jobs. People always want to get a deal or a coupon or free money. And it's funny how smart people get when money is involved. So I think that Lolli sort of naturally serves people that are coupon clippers or saving, people who care about saving. And if you care about saving and you care about money, you're going to naturally be attracted to Lolli, and thus you're going to learn about Bitcoin. So it has this nice little flywheel effect. Some fun memes that have been popularized amongst our community is one of the most prevalent ones is stacking sats. And we have a whole blog post if you type in stacking sats Lolli that you can read all about the history of stacking sats and where the name came from and who popularized it, what companies have used it, not just us. And we have a fun little blog post on our site that you can read it, in its entirety. But the synopsis is Satoshis are the smallest nomenclature of Bitcoin. And when somebody is, I think instead of saying like 0.0001 Bitcoin, which is difficult to say, you can
Right.
say, I have one Satoshi. You can say I have 10 Satoshis, 1,000 Satoshis. And it's a way easier nomenclature for bringing Bitcoin to the masses. So it was popularized by a big Bitcoin advocate and friend, Matt Odell. And he started talking about stacking sats, stacking Satoshis. And then a lot of people brought it to Lolli, and our community helped popularize it because every time that they would earn rewards, they would be stacking sats. Um,
Right.
so yeah, it's a fun little thing to say. And every time someone like shares on Twitter that they've earned Bitcoin, they say stacking sats. So it's this nice little like flywheel effect where they share that they're stacking sats, and then that they stack sats at hotels.com, or they stack sats at on Postmates, or wherever they stack sats on. And then other users get to see that we're working with those merchants and that they can go stack more sats if they go buy at those merchants. So it's this fun little thing that I think our community has popularized, and it's been a fun meme that I think probably a larger discussion if you want to go there. But I think memes are incredibly important for conveying concepts that are difficult to understand, like Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Well, certainly the old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words is not lost on the internet, to be sure. Um,
Exactly.
so that's fantastic. There are actually a lot of ways that I see you are building community. That is certainly one of them. I love a good hashtag and I love a good meme. But I also am looking at your website right now, and I find the user interface to be really beautiful and
Thank you.
really clean, easy to navigate. And in some sense, it also mimics the usual, I was about to say average, there's nothing average about it, but the type of interface that people are familiar with already that continues to build the trust in interfacing with it. And so I can imagine a lot of thought went into the design of it as well, but it certainly serves, because when I compare it to others, I won't name names, but you can go to another website, and after 17 steps, you too can have Bitcoin or some type of cryptographically secured asset. But most people are not going to go through 17 steps at all. And if it looks too funky, too weird, they're just not going to do it. And so I can imagine it, and you can talk to me about the intentionality of the way you've even designed the space.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, and I appreciate the compliments. I'll relay them to my team.
Please do.
And yeah, I'm a big fan of my team. I think we've clearly built a company together again, and everyone really adds to the product, from like our front end engineers to our designers. My background is in product, and I think that when the way that I was thinking about the product in the early days is, it's largely inspired by Ebates too. Like Ebates
Mm-hmm.
is amazing. It gives you free cash, and
Right.
people are obsessed with it. I remember in an early all hands meeting that we had there, they would have these like unsolicited videos of customer videos that people would send in, and people would be like, "I love my big fat check," and getting my my free cash and all that stuff. And I had never used Ebates before, and then once we started talking with them through the acquisition and started working there, I became obsessed with it. Like it was just an easy way and a no brainer to get cash. And
Right.
and so with Lolli, like I was like, Bitcoin doesn't have that. It takes like 8 days minimum in most cases to like get Bitcoin. Most
Right.
people are never going to take, as you said, 17 steps or 7, 8 days to get approved to go buy Bitcoin. Not
Right.
only is buying Bitcoin risky, just being honest, it's because it's a volatile asset, but it's a difficult process. And so you have to make a better UI. And Lolli works as like a passive way to get into Bitcoin. You download it, you shop mostly as you normally would
Right.
at merchants that you recognize, and you can slowly but surely get Bitcoin. And we try to make it as easy as possible for people to earn Bitcoin very, very easily. Yeah, I think we're launching a mobile app soon, and we've gone back to product mode and in building out the mobile app, and we're thinking about it with the same sort of intentionality of there's still not a great way to get Bitcoin on mobile, and so
No.
we're building that with the same intent of taking inspiration from a lot of the mobile rewards apps for cashback programs and couponing programs, and applying it to Lolli for mobile.
Well, that's fantastic. And everything, I feel like I can run a small nation from my phone, and which is
Yeah.
what I usually do as the associate dean of a law school. And the same can be said for having access to people's money and what that means in terms of empowerment. As you said earlier, the democratization of commerce as it meets, hand in hand with a native currency. And so that's really, really exciting. And so that with the time that we have now, I want to transition into the future of business in the ecosystem. And that, touches on a lot of the things that we've mentioned about on the consumer side, easy access to Satoshis and to Bitcoin, of course, and the, commerce and how we participate in commerce today and what you think prospectively it might look like in the future, building on what you already know from an e-commerce perspective, certainly, and the rebate model and all that. But I have to imagine that you've imagined a world of where we're going to be as you continue to scale. What are your thoughts on where we're going, the future of business in the cryptocurrency ecosystem?
So I think it's going to be really interesting what it does to existing businesses and existing companies. I think that there's a really, if you understand sort of like how payments flow, you understand the inefficiencies of the current status of payments. So I think one of the biggest things that Bitcoin does and will continue to do is show that transparency of all these intermediaries. And so there's a tax that you pay on all purchases based on the currency, the money that you're using, and how many people have to touch it and take their fee. With most payments, there's a lot of people that take those fees, and if you remove them from the equation, I think that payments looks a lot different. I think it looks more SaaS based and less
Mm-hmm.
like percentage. It looks more like an enterprise like company, and instead of it being like percentage based, I could see it being more like monthly fee or something like
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
built on top of servicing somebody, because you just don't like all the percentages should essentially drive to zero. So I think you could see some real business model changes occur on the payments side. I think that there will be a pervasive stablecoin
Mm-hmm.
that exist, whether that's Libra or a competitor to Libra. But if Libra ever launches, Libra is, for those that don't know, Facebook's stablecoin. If it launches, and it's when it launches is more likely.
Right.
I think that given the scale across all of their channels with WhatsApp and Instagram and Facebook and several billion users, I think that the scale of adding a stable coin, it's going to do some pretty incredible things for the world. Imagine just being able to transfer money freely to all parties, no matter where somebody is located. And that gets really, really powerful if you remove banks from the equation, essentially, is what they're doing.
Right.
Being able to do a P2P transfer is pretty incredible. Now, I think that trust is proving to be an issue. Privacy is proving to be an issue. But what's really interesting is like we share all this credit card data with credit card companies, we share all this information with banks, and it really brings up into question people's trust for tech companies is not as high as it is for banks, which is interesting to me, given that what I know about security and privacy with different
Right.
archaic institutions versus more modern institutions. But it'll be interesting to see like the public stance, both their perception and then the way that they act, given what the current state of privacy and perception of privacy is. I'm personally very long on like rewards models as a way to distribute money to people. In our case, Bitcoin. And yeah, I'm excited to eventually I probably use some sort of payment tool I imagine it will be a stable coin that becomes the most effective way that people will, like merchants will adopt some sort of cryptocurrency
Right.
because they ultimately want cost savings on their end. And if consumers know that they're getting cost savings and merchants can pass those cost savings off to the consumer, that's good for everybody. So that's a world that I'd like to live in. If you could remove chargebacks, if you could add less fees because you don't pay interchange fees, or
Right.
that's great for the consumer because then cost goes down across the board.
That's really exciting, and it does take what I consider to be some of the best aspects of cryptographically secured assets of all kinds, and really imagines a world that is better, I always say better, faster, cheaper,
Yeah, exactly.
and more secure in some sense. And we're always talking about trust in the space. And we're not talking about the absence of trust with blockchain protocols, distributed ledger technologies. We're talking about trust in something that you can, in a software that you know how it works, you know what it does, you know where it is. It is a fundamental shift in the way that people think about value. And I think businesses like yours will go a long way in reducing the barriers to entry. And once people get familiar, or at least they feel safe and they trust you and they trust your partners, then the next level, and what I didn't know before the interview, or the conversation, but I'm glad to know, is that you also have this educational component as well. Because so many people fall down the proverbial rabbit hole, some not as hard as others, but enough to get curious to figure out, what is this and what else does this unlock? What potential can I unlock when I have Satoshis? What does that mean and what next? And that's a really exciting part of the value add that you provide through Lolli as well. So I thank you so much for sharing, taking your time to share what you are working on, what the future looks like, and for this amazing service. And before I even reached out to you, and I think I told you this on Twitter, I already had a Lolli account. I think were you on Laura Shin recently?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Thank you for the
Okay. Yes. So I heard you on Laura's show. I'm going to get her on this show as soon as she finishes this book, for sure.
Oh,
But I
great.
remember hearing it, and I said, I want to stack some sats. Let me see about this. And so I created an account, and then I saw the great news that you had about some recent partnerships. And so I'm so glad that we were able to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me on.
Stacking sats is the new coupon clipping, at least when you stack with Lolli. Alex started Lolli with the goal of making it easy to earn, own, and share Bitcoin with as many people as possible. He and his co-founder are leading the way toward mass adoption of Bitcoin as a form of payment for everyday goods and services. And beyond that, he hopes to democratize commerce by unifying the world of value transactions in a global economy. Alex and his crew have figured out that the road to mass adoption is paved with good UI/UX, better user interfaces and experiences as the conduit to solving for real challenges and improving online commerce. The bottom line, Lolli is a passive way to earn Bitcoin while engaging in the e-commerce activities you'd be engaged in anyway. The future of business and e-commerce is now, so use the link in the show notes to head on over to Lolli, kick the tires, and start stacking those sats. Okay, that's all for this episode. Until next time, continue to shine.
Stay in touch with host Tonya Evans via your favorite social media. On Twitter at Tech Intersect, and on Instagram via the handle Tech Intersect. This podcast has been produced by Stephanie Renee for Soul Sanctuary Incorporated.